Well, good morning, everybody. First, let me say thank you for your attention to this case and participation during the jury selection last Friday. I know that gets a little mundane at times, and it's the kind of thing they never show in the movies because it is so dull. No offense, Judge Ramirez, but we appreciate you participating and giving some honest answers to us, and more importantly, going forward, we thank you for your dedication to this trial over the next 2 weeks. We realize fully that, this takes a lot out of your personal lives, your professional lives, and we appreciate that. So what I'm about to tell you is an opening statement, which is really a framework for you just to understand the evidence. You can kind of think of it like a movie trailer, right? I'm certainly not going to detail for you every little aspect of this case, but I'm going to kind of give you a general sense of what you can expect to see, right, in the coming days of this trial. If you could put up the PowerPoint, please. I just want to share with you 2 photographs as I speak with you this morning here. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Stephanie Pavlons. She is the person who is the subject of this homicide trial. She's a person you will not hear from directly in this case. This is Stephanie as she was enjoying life one day. The next photograph, please. This also is Stephanie Pavlons. And this is what the case centers on, right? How did she end up dead in the woods in the town of Delafield in 2022? That's what the case is about. How did she get like this? You're going to hear a lot of testimony, ladies and gentlemen, and the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is be patient, right? This is a pretty complex case. It's not as if I can put one witness on the stand and have him or her explain the whole thing to you and we can be done in a day, right? You can realize if we're telling you this is going to take 2 weeks, you're going to have to be a little bit patient. You're given the opportunity to take notes. If that's something you're comfortable with, I would encourage you to take notes because there's a lot. There's a lot to keep track of. Maybe you're one of these guys that can just see it and hear it once and you're good. That's fine too. But the evidence that we're going to present to you through the course of these next 2 weeks is a culmination of a lengthy investigation, okay? You're going to hear that the Stephanie sadly was discovered by a construction crew who was out working in the area on the date of September 9, 2022. And you will hear that the reason they discovered her body is because there was an overwhelming odor as they were out working in the area. And that's what drew their attention to the woods and made them go into the woods to explore. And of course, made this horrible discovery. When investigators were first at the scene, along with the medical examiner and members of her staff, they could not even tell the gender of this person because the body had been so grossly decomposed over time. Judge Ramirez had warned you on Friday, some of these details are going to be a little bit gruesome, and we do apologize for that, but it's really important for you to know. The condition of the body when they found it was decomposed largely by insect infestation, maggots, so that her entire neck and face area was pretty much gone. There's no soft tissue. And I don't mean to sound flip, but her appearance was kind of similar to one of the Halloween skeletons you would see in your neighbor's yard this time of year, because there was no flesh, no soft tissue remaining. Stephanie Pavlons was 44 years old when she died. And you were going to hear a little bit of background about Stephanie, who she was. It's our understanding she grew up in Delafield. Her parents, Richard and Georgianne, longtime residents. I think they said they lived in their house more than 50 years in the city of Delafield. And she's a young woman, probably about 24, 25 years ago now. She met the defendant, Matthew Pahl, at a bowling alley. And the two became involved with each other and remained involved in each other's lives till 2022. In fact, they had a child in common. They had a daughter born to them in 2003, Layla. They had never married. Their relationship is described by friends and family as on again, off again. It was obviously a personal relationship. They'd come in and out of each other's lives. They lived together. And then Stephanie would go back and stay with her parents for a time or two, and then they get back together. In 2022, the defendant, Matthew Pahl, had an apartment right on the other side of the golf course here, just down the street from us, off of Delafield Street in the city of Waukesha. And at that same time, we will present evidence to you that he was involved in an online relationship with two women in the Philippines, women that he had met through some kind of dating website or online chat room or something of that sort. And he was deeply involved with these women. This wasn't just like every now and then he'd chat them up and say, how's it going? He would talk to them on a daily basis. He became involved in an online sexual relationship with them. He would talk to them frequently. And he began to make plans to move to the Philippines with an intention, it seemed, to be involved in a personal or sexual relationship with one or both of them. He would describe Stephanie to these people as just a coworker or an employee. This all became derailed, his plan to move to the Philippines, in about June or July of 2022, when he injured his foot in some type of accident, his foot or his ankle. And it laid him up. He was on crutches. He was in a walking cast or a boot type of thing. And he was struggling to the point where he had to rely on Stephanie more and more to help him with his daily cares, because if you ever been on crutches, you know it's not easy just to grocery shop, right? So he starts relying on Stephanie more and more. She's much more involved in his life around this time, beginning in the summer of 2022. And this derails his plans to move to the Philippines. He had been hoping to get there by the end of the summer. He also starts treatment at Orthopedic Associates of Wisconsin on Gulf Road in the town of Delafield. Physical therapy. We talked about that on Friday. A lot of people have been there for physical therapy, right? Nothing unusual about that. But what is so significant about that is the date of August 23, 2022. That's a day you're going to hear a lot about. By the end of this trial, you'll be able to repeat it back to me, August 23 of 2022. Because that's the day we believe he killed Stephanie Pavlons in the woods just outside of Orthopedic Associates and right up against the golf course at Western Lakes. On that day, we will be able to prove to you that Mr. Pahl had an appointment at Orthopedic Associates. We will be able to prove to you that he and Stephanie left the apartment in Waukesha here, drove northbound on Delafield Street up to Grandview Boulevard, took a right, headed north up Grandview Boulevard, crossed Silvernail, where the old gas house used to be there, crossed I-94, crossed Gulf Road, and not crossed Gulf Road, got the Gulf Road, took a left. The new DMV station is up there right now. You may be familiar with that intersection. You will hear testimony that they stopped at the Quick Trip at that location, stayed there for about 20 minutes. Stephanie goes in, buys some breakfast food. Apparently they sit in the car, eat breakfast. Importantly, you will hear that they leave Quick Trip at about 9:11 a.m. and they arrive at the parking lot of Orthopedic Associates at 9:16 a.m. This will be proven by cell phone records. He arrives in the parking lot at 9:16 a.m., but he doesn't check in for his appointment until 9:34 a.m. So there's about a 16-minute gap there. He goes into his appointment. We will present records to you from the clinic. He's seen by a therapist at about 9:38 a.m. He goes back to meet with the therapist, and he's released at 10:33 a.m. The appointment is over. You will hear, based on cell phone records, that again, he goes out, well, strike that. Released at 10:33 a.m. You will hear from cell phone records that he does not leave the parking lot in the area of Orthopedic Associates until 10:53 a.m. During these two gaps, the 16-minute gap before the appointment and the 20-minute gap after the appointment, we have no idea where Mr. Pahl is or what he's doing. There's no activity on his phone. He's not moving anywhere. There's nothing that we could find that tells us what he's up to during these gaps of time. Also, on August 23 of 2022, from the time Stephanie Pavlons leaves that quick trip, and you'll see her drive out of the parking lot on a video, no one ever hears from her again. She doesn't talk to anybody. She's not seen by anybody. There's no video of her anywhere. She gets missed calls on her phone. She's not replying to calls. She's not responding to calls. She's not picking up her prescriptions. She's missing doctor appointments. She's gone. On September 9th of 2022 is the day the body is discovered. I just told you that. It's about 17 days between August 23 and September 9th of 2022. Well, what's Mr. Pahl doing during this time? Pretty much going on with his life. In fact, you may see some videos that you watch and you may conclude doesn't seem to have a care in the world. He continues chatting with the women in the Philippines. He continues making his plans to go to the Philippines, saying, I'll be there by the end of the fall. I just got to finish this treatment and I'll be there. But he's also saying some curious things to these women in the Philippines. And he also starts talking to his dad. Hadn't talked to him since June. Suddenly he's talking to his dad frequently. He's traveling up to Jackson off of Highway 60 to visit with his dad. His dad's coming down to his apartment. And he's telling his dad and he's telling his girlfriends something bad happened. But I can't send it in a text message. I can't talk about it in writing. We'll have to talk about it on the phone. He says he's worried about somebody. He even tells his dad he thinks he's in some kind of trouble. He also starts doing Google searches. He's searching for Stephanie Pavlons' name in the obituaries. He's searching he's searching Google, just doing Google searches on her name. At this point, nothing had been made public about her death. There was a brief news article the day the body was found. But prior to the body even being found, he's looking up the obituaries for Stephanie Pavlons. He's Google searching her name. And he's got an app on his phone that's a police scanner. And he's checking that frequently, checking in what are the cops up to? What are the cops investigating nowadays? What kind of scene are they getting called to? All of this evidence will be presented to you. The one thing he doesn't do, the one thing Matthew Pahl does not do, ladies and gentlemen, that you will hear during this trial, is alert anybody to the fact that Stephanie is missing. He doesn't call her parents. He doesn't call the police. He doesn't ask the neighbors. He doesn't even call their own daughter. He doesn't lift one finger to alert anybody to the fact that Stephanie is gone. In fact, it's not until September 17th of 2022 that police go to his apartment with a search warrant to look for evidence. And that's the first chance they get to talk to Mr. Pahl about this. And what does he do? He lies. He lies about when he had last seen Stephanie. He lies about her whereabouts. He lies about her belongings. He lies about his own whereabouts. He lies. What he does, again, is try and cover his tracks. He tries to deflect the police and starts talking about Stephanie and her history. You see, Stephanie did have a hard life. There's no getting around it. There were times she felt hopeless. There were times she felt sad, depressed, lonely. She kept a journal. You'll hear some of these journal entries where she describes the despair that she's feeling in her life. And it will also be very clear from her journal entries that the cause of her despair and her hopelessness was the abuse that had been inflicted upon her by the defendant, Matthew Pahl. There was verbal abuse, emotional abuse, telling her she's stupid, she can't do anything right. There was physical abuse that she documented in her own journal. There was an occasion where she reported he hit her over the head with a bottle 5 or 6 times. There was an occasion where she reported he kicked her or punched her in the tailbone so bad she couldn't walk for days. There was an occasion where she reported he slapped her so hard in the face, around the side of the face, it broke an eardrum. She got medical treatment for that. She will describe Mr. Pahl as Jekyll and Hyde, somebody that can snap on a dime. The defendant, Mr. Pahl, tries to use this history for his own benefit. Again, cast the shadow a different way to the cops. I think she wandered off or maybe killed herself because, you know, she has this history. She's thought about suicide in the past. That's his answer to the officers on January 17th of 2022. Now, this investigation was lengthy. It took a year for the detectives to put this whole case together. And that's why it's going to take us 2 weeks to present it to you, right? The officers executed search warrants. They collected evidence. They interviewed witnesses. They subpoenaed or got warrants for all kinds of records, cell phone records, bank records, medical records, email records, messaging app records, video surveillance, anything they could to kind of document this, they did it. They seized computers and cell phones, and then they have computer forensic experts who extracted the data off the phone. You're going to hear a lot of testimony about that. They even enlisted the help of a human remains detection dog, or a cadaver dog. This is a canine that's trained specifically to detect the odor of decomposing human remains, just like you might see a dog at an airport detecting bombs or drugs or something like that. This dog has a unique training, and she is trained to detect decomposing human remains. You will hear testimony that this dog searched Mr. Pahl's vehicle and gave a positive alert. She hit on the car, indicating she could smell decomposing human remains in his truck. So this is all kind of an overview of the type of evidence we're going to present to you. There's one thing we won't be able to present to you, and that's the cause of death. And you may say, how in the world are you going to prove a murder case when you don't know how she died? Well, Judge Ramirez will instruct you on the law at the end of the trial. And he's going to tell you that, in fact, the burden of proof on the state of Wisconsin is not to prove how she died. You will not be asked that at the end of the case. You will be asked, did Matthew Pahl intentionally kill Stephanie Pavlons? Is he guilty of that allegation by the state or not guilty? The fact is, Dr. Scheel, our medical examiner, will tell you that the body was decomposed so badly she couldn't make a lot of her normal findings that she could otherwise. Most of the major organs were missing. soft tissues missing from crucial areas on the body. The rest of the body was dark and discolored, leathery type skin from being out in the elements for 17 days. And that's why you have count 2, which is hiding a corpse, right? Because we believe the evidence will show you that this was all at the hands of Matthew Pahl. He purposely left her in the woods in a spot where she wouldn't be found for 17 days to his advantage. Now the medical examiner can't even tell us what caused her death. That's why there's a law that prohibits people from hiding a corpse. We believe there's going to be a lot of evidence of him covering his tracks. He tells one of the girlfriends in the Philippines he's going to be ready when the cops come. He deletes text messages. He does all kinds of things to cover up. So, again, I'm asking you to be patient and pay good attention, because every witness has something important to tell you, right? Not one witness is going to tell you the whole story, but everybody has one little thing. And we believe that at the end, when we have presented our entire case to you, you will be convinced that Matthew Pahl is guilty of these charges we've levied against him. One of the most compelling pieces of evidence we will present to you is a timeline of his activities to the best of our ability to piece it together between August 23 and September 9 of 2022. And you're going to see from that timeline that we have painted him into such a very small corner. The only reasonable conclusion you can reach is that he's guilty of killing Stephanie Pavlons in an intentional act. Thank you.
Thank you.